I was around 20 when, one midday, my car suddenly failed to start outside a mall, specifically a side mall. And this was a hot summer day, and being in the late 70s, there was no cell phones. I was wondering what the best next thing to do was. Then a couple offered me a ride home since it was near. I initially refused, saying it wasn't too far of a walk home. And a side note here, in this time period, there was many New Age, metaphysical cults and organizations everywhere, and I was never interested in them, thank God. I was saved at 12, and I dedicated my life to the Christian cause. At 17, I always had the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So back to the main part of the story. And then, the people in the car. I was getting farther and farther away from them. And stupid me then decided, since their car windows were rolled down, this was safe to go with them. It ended up only the guy that drove. After, in the car, I kept aware of my door handle and manual lock, and he began talking about that same organization of metaphysical society. And he was part of one of those occults that I was previously discussing. How they were always looking for new recruits, he says. As we neared my subdivision, I decided I didn't want him to know even the name. So I said, "Here's good, thanks for the lift." I had a gnawing feeling in my gut, and I could feel the dark black energy irradiating from him. And he suddenly stopped the car, with eyes glowing red and a creepy grin. He says, "You sure? Your turn is right up there." I was already halfway out of the door and said, "Yep, Jesus protect," and waited for him to continue onward and away. I was terrified. My heart was racing. And I run closer and closer to my subdivision, and I get out. And thankfully, I go up, and then I go in. And I always made sure this whole time I was not being followed. And thankfully, I never saw that creepy man again with the red glowing eyes. When I was a child, the thermometer broke in the sink, and I remember the lucid, abyssal color of the mercury. And fast forward to 1991. I was attending a super small gathering at a very super small chapel with my aunt, and we always got along well. And we enjoy each other's company. At the gathering, there were a couple of hunters and a couple of other people as well, in various occupations. And then I liked the choir, and it was a good sermon. And finally later, towards the end, I volunteered to pray for some people. And then they switched me up with this lady that prayed for me. It was very strange. She gave off a strange presence, and the others could notice it too in the room. As I stood, facing another person instead of her, she pointed her finger towards me praying. And then reality struck me like a bolt of lightning. I felt as if I was in a dream or a trance, as I saw a stream swirling out of her finger, just like mercury. Next, all I can remember is seeing stars, and I fell. And I was being helped off the floor by some men and others in the congregation. And I asked, where did she go? And everybody said they saw as the lights flickered and she vanished out the room. One person said that she flew out of the window like a witch. This certainly had to be an encounter with a witch that was doing some kind of a spell, trying to infiltrate the church. And I was okay. And that experience still haunts me to this day. One night, I was doing my annual worship sessions, and there was thunder and lightning outside. And after hours of this worship, and I went a little bit longer than usual, I was meditating on the Lord and worshiping Him, and feeling His calm and spirit and warmth all over my body. And I want to make clear that there's other dimensions and other realms of sight, and some people do it wrong and see evil realms and dimensions through different drugs and things. And the aliens exist in other realms, but there is also realms of the Lord, like the seventh dimension. So I was praying, and then I opened my eyes, and my head was near the ceiling, and I could see the whole room. And later that same night, during an intense worship, during prayer, not drugs or anything with the fallen angels or aliens, I saw blue sparks come from my palms. I could see the room, I could see everything, but I could see these blue sparks and the warmth of the Lord radiating all over my body. I was not harmed or hurt or on anything. This was holy and righteous. I felt totally safe and godly. And another night, I was having a prayer session like this. After an extreme worship, while eyes closed and the rain stopping this other night, I had my hands raised high to the heavens praising the Lord. And I can see above, a hand grabbed mine, and I jumped back in fear. O me of little faith. Perhaps deep down I felt not worthy, but no, I am worthy, and I regret my action. This reaction that I had to this was not just. I should have held the hand, this righteous angel or the Lord Himself. That there are many ways to the top of the mountain, and through prayer and meditation on the Lord, you can see greater things than what the aliens, occults, and psychedelics would take you. This story starts when I was riding my bike and coming back to that house in my mid-teens. I was just anxious the whole day and wondering what is going on here because of the religious oppression of my parents. I was always and will always be a Christian, but they just had a different view from me and different views in general about religious things. So I go back into the house and I see them. And then they start to bring up the topics that we disagree on and get condescending with me. I remember as the evening sun was getting lower and lower, some kids outside were playing basketball. And I just knew that I had enough. And I said, a question. I asked, "So, what were you doing today in your garden?" I asked my mother. And she was perplexed and said she watered the flowers. And then I was able to divert the conversation away because it wasn't a one-sided conversation anymore of her telling me that I am not following the religion the way she would want it to be. So then, what I do next is I go into the bathroom and stare at myself in the mirror. And then, to my surprise, after a few seconds, nearly a minute, I see myself staring at the mirror, and I'm floating above the ceiling. And I am confused what's going on. And I realize, and I know, that I am just a spirit in a body. And it's a very interesting experience. And this astral projection is not of God. I wonder, where would I have gone, or where could I have gone? And I believe that God was assisting me and helping me go through this as a sign of my spiritual connection with Him. And then I come back into my body, and I'm very amazed at what I just experienced. It was like a zooming, and it was in a twinkle of an eye. And it caused myself to return back into my body, as I just said a moment ago, but it's like zooming in and out of a trance, and I could see everything all over the bathroom. And I believe that this strengthened my understanding of God and my faith.